Goodness, I always have to look at the clock, guys. It is afternoon already on the East Coast. So good afternoon for Mark and I. For Miles, it is still good morning. It is still Friday morning where he is. So to everyone joining us, thank you for hopping on. Obviously, I feel like these are two like titans of the channel. I think they are very, very well known. So we're going to jump in. I mean, Miles, if you want to introduce yourself, and then Mark, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we're going to jump in and start talking about RapidFireTools and some industry changes, some changes with Mark. You may not have seen him on the road a whole lot. So why is that? But Miles, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah, channel development manager here at Kaseya. I like to hop on as many of these as I can. So I'm just here to support you and to support Mark, of course.
Love it. All right, Mark, I don't feel like you need much of an introduction either.
You never know, right?
You never know, exactly.
So these days I'm on the road less, as Jennifer, I think you noticed, and Miles, you know already. So I've been VP products for RapidFireTools now for several years after moving out of that sales role, but still doing business development. But for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 months, and for the foreseeable future, I'm really focusing more on Network Detective as product manager, as well as participating in the other products. So, some really pretty cool things going on across our entire product line, with the integrations, and the IT complete with Kaseya, as well as product stuff. But yeah, it's a little sad being not on the road as much anymore, because I don't get to see Miles or Jennifer, so many of my friends and colleagues, around the US. So a bit sad, but, I'll get back out there.
Yes. Okay. So product manager, obviously that does not include a whole lot of travel other than some Kaseya events. What is a product manager? What is that? Because that doesn't exist inside of most people's organizations that are listening. So help us understand what that is.
Yeah, I think from a technology perspective, most people know what a product manager is doing in a company like RapidFire or Kaseya, right? So we're responsible for taking input from our customers, which is why I was always loved being on the road, because I get firsthand feedback.
Yes.
Tell me what's good, what's bad, what they love about the product. Sometimes people say they're not happy about this certain thing, because then go back and fix it. So it's interfacing, being the interface, I think, between our customers, our potential customers, and the entire Kaseya organization. It's not just development, but it's everything from making sure onboarding's successful, the documentation's good, the whole experience of a customer as they purchase Network Detective or Compliance Manager, Scan, or CyberHawk, whatever the case may be.
And so you mentioned integrations between the tool sets and getting things integrated into IT Complete. And I'm sure that is a multi-year initiative. And then that timeline probably continues to go out a little bit the more that you acquire companies, et cetera. But help me understand, I've heard it a couple of times, but I like hearing it from different people, the vision for IT Complete. Is it single pane of glass? Is it like why are we having this umbrella? What's the goal there?
It's a platform that's complete, automated, priced right. It's designed to make sure that the multifunction IT person, whether they're an MSP or in the IT department, but primarily my focus has been on MSP, really simplifies their time and makes their job easier as they move from one function to another. So, they get a support call. They, get onto their RMM, whether it's Data RMM or VSA, if it's a Kaseya product. They may need information on the customer, so there's integration to IT Glue. If they're in RapidFireTools, they may need to, they see a risk or issue from an assessment from Network Detective. They want to push that into BMS or Autotest. So all of those integrations make it, they're not just high-level integrations or commercial integrations. They're, true workflow integrations that make a difference. And, think about Microsoft Office, right? So there's that common look and feel as well. The menus are different because they need to be for, Word and Excel and PowerPoint. But it's the same thing with the Kaseya products, whether it's Graphis or VSA or Data RMM, whatever the product is, driving toward that common look and feel, so that it just makes it so much easier and more natural for customers who use more of our tools to save time and money during their day.
I also
love-
say, Jennifer,
Yeah.
do you know on average how many vendors the average MSP has?
I want to, I'm sure I'm going to be wrong, but I want to say 22.
It was anywhere from probably 12 or 13 to 26. That's the
Okay.
average, or that's kind of like the scope. And
Right.
lot, right?
like our number we throw out is 17.
Okay.
Right?
All
So
of
you
whom
can
have a
obviously-
single pane of glass. So you only have 17 single panes of glass.
Exactly. And I mean, I think what they said is, with 17 vendors, you obviously have, probably monthly updates. You have anywhere from 10 to 20, different configurations, different things that you need to learn. And it works out to be about 3,000 a year. That's what we worked that out. And so what was happening is we're finding that so many of these neat, cool things that we have in all the solutions were being unused.
Right.
So bring it under one pane of glass. We bring in Cooper, who is Fred's, our CEO's dog,
Yes.
and that's our Cooper intelligence engine. And so what Cooper does, you probably remember Clippy from back in the 90s?
Yeah.
I like to say Cooper is Clippy on steroids because he kind of gives you information and advice and tips on how to utilize every one of our solutions better. And so far, about 80% of what he recommends actually gets put into play, which that's got to go down eventually. But still,
Sure.
that's pretty neat that Cooper's there in the background doing his AI work and going, oh, they're not using, drop a fish for Graphis, or they're not using this part of RapidFire that they could, help their workflow out or save time. So that's pretty
Love
neat
that.
too.
Yeah, I was involved with a pretty complicated documentation process just to say, when are we taking something from, let's say, a marketing automation tool, or taking that point of contact from marketing automation and putting it over into Autotask, and so figuring out, is this a one-way sync? Is this a two-way sync? And that was simply for, marketing. And then you probably 10x or 20x that for the complexity between multiple tools. Right. And what's the single source of truth for data? And where are we, it gets very complex very quickly. So I love the vision. I appreciate you telling me that, because every time I hear it, it sinks in just a little bit better. And then obviously we've got the modern version of Clippy that's got the artificial intelligence built in, and who knows what's coming. I'm watching all of you guys to see what you're doing on the AI front, because it's here, it's being leveraged, and it's going to be leveraged more in the months and years to come. So very, very cool. I want to talk about the product itself. It has been a long time since I've looked at the network detective tool, the whole RapidFireTools product family. What has changed? What's new, let's say in the last 10, 11 months?
Well, I mean, we've got so many different products. So I guess I'll start off with Network Detective. So we continue to add more executive level and customer facing reports for our users to be able to generate more infographic style, so that there's a series of one pagers that an MSP can use during their quarterly business reviews to make a point, kick off a project, get buy off on a project. So not just an executive summary, which we have, of course, but unsupported operating systems, right? And why it's important. We tie into dark web ID and can do reports there. So these are all things that can help them cross-sell additional products out of the Kaseya family, as well as provide a lot more value to their customers, and of course upsell projects. Again, documenting the need for these. Most recently, one of the cooler things we've done in Network Detective is we've got we call our cyber attack risk assessment.
I was going to ask you about cyber. Okay, good. Tell me.
Yeah. So this is pretty cool. So going way back, Network Detective, one of the original use cases for, we weren't MSPs then, if you'll remember, Jennifer, was being able to do an assessment and then offer an assessment as an IT provider as a way to get their foot in the door. And of course, that information allowed them to do a better job of scoping the environment, knowing what's there, justifying in their mind their cost for the proposal, And then we came out with this idea of a risk report, which, allowed an MSP or IT provider to say, hey, there's risk on your network. You got somebody running it today, they're not doing so well, right? That's the message behind that. The world's gotten more complicated from a Microsoft perspective, right? Every new version of Windows tightens down security. People aren't on domain-based networks anymore, and doing scanning from a single machine is a lot tougher these days if you want to get all the information. So the new idea here, and you can still do that old way of doing it. A lot of MSPs, have built multi-million-dollar businesses using this. But the new one is basically you create in Network Detective a special scanner for a prospect. I mean, that's the MSP and prospect doesn't know the difference, but basically it's going to you provide the prospect a link in an email or some other way. They click it, they run a computer scanner. The data gets automatically uploaded back into the system. The MSP can generate the report immediately. They don't have to wait. And they've got a brand new professionally designed report that is at a layman's level, right? It's always about, why is this important?
Yes.
So it talks about, what the issues are, why it's important that those be solved. And so it's a way for an MSP now to more easily offer in their marketing on their website, at a webinar that they do or a conference that they're doing, right? Come see me, we'll do a free cyber security risks assessment for you.
Excellent. That was going to be my next question. Tell me again what it's called. So it is called a cybersecurity risk assessment, which is wonderful. It is a great prospecting tool, and then lets you lead into potentially project work, managed security, or bundling your managed security with your managed services. So I love it. That's so in alignment with what the RapidFireTools brand has been known for. You're simply expanding, of course, to include cybersecurity because you have to. And then having the graphical thing. So I immediately thought of like the audit for IT. And so I'm curious how those integrations will look in the years to come, or maybe months to come. I'm not asking for roadmaps and projections and things like that, but it just feels like there is synergy between the different pieces of the puzzle that are underneath the IT Complete umbrella. I call it an umbrella. I don't know what you call
that's
platform.
No. A platform umbrella. I use both terms for sure. I mean, I guess we obviously announced at Connect that this is, IT Complete 2.0. So I guess we'll probably ride that all the way up till it sounds too repetitive, right?
Yes.
I think we need to get up to 5.0 because everyone loves to say 5.0, right?
5.0 is awesome. I love it. And maybe we'll all still be around to see that. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, hopefully. Yeah,
I hope so. I mean, if you keep acquiring at the pace that you have been.
Fast as this company is moving, without a doubt, right?
Yes.
Without
yes.
a doubt.
And that's what's exciting for me. Like the industry is changing, and we all see, if I put on my MSP hat for a second, like we see the industry is changing. We see cybersecurity is here. It is needed. It's, the risks are accelerating. The threats are growing. AI is here. Maybe we don't quite know how to monetize it yet, but it's a real risk. I think it's also an opportunity. We need to figure out what that looks like. So we see the industry is changing, but the older we get, perhaps the more stubborn and staunch we get in our ways, and we don't want the vendors to necessarily change. But of course you have to change to keep up with the industry changes. And so I love that. That's part of why I like these conversations so much, because I get that little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Like what are the larger successful companies looking at when they look at the industry?
Well, I know I just saw this past week. I can't remember which company it is, or maybe I just don't want to promote a competitor, but I'm super happy to see that one of our competitors got a $60 million round of funding, and they were, featured in Times Square. And I was like, you know what? Like, people reach out to me, they're like, is this scary for you? I'm like, no, this is great. If people are putting money into our industry, that's what we want. Like, I come from an industry that lots of people would say is a dinosaur. Like, I came over from the travel industry, and the travel industry, 25, 30 years ago, every one of us used a travel agent. Now it's like less than 10%. And I would always find in our industry that I was coming over from, people didn't want to change. I remember when our company was given Salesforce back in like 2018. Like half of the workers were like, I'm not doing this. I refuse. And it's like, and our bosses were like, that's cool. If you want to refuse and you don't want to use this, that's fine. And it's like, nowadays, it seems so bonkers to me that they would allow the workers to dictate a tool that could so help the business.
Yes.
And people in our industry said no. And I mean, that's the one thing I love about our industry is that, it's constantly changing. If you don't have flexibility in your blood, you're not going to stay in this industry for a long time.
Yes.
You need to be able to change. You need to be able to adapt. And, someone you chat with one day could be your boss the next day. So treat everyone well.
Yes, agree. Don't burn bridges, never burn bridges. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize you came from the travel industry, but I was just chatting with my parents. They were on a tour of Europe, and we were chatting because they were supposed to go pre-COVID, and then the trip got canceled. And anyway, we were chuckling over how much things have changed just in my lifetime, let alone my parents' lifetime. Like, we used to drive to a AAA to pick up a triptych, and my
Right.
kids are like, what is that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's like a physical map. And they're like, a what?
Miles,
And
are
that's,
you even old enough to know what that is?
I've not heard of triptych, but I mean, I've traveled my whole life, so I'm pretty spoiled in the sense of I've got to see a lot of things. Like, I was just in Europe a few weeks ago. We had a wedding in Tuscany, and like, I turned on my data for the day because in Canada we have the most expensive phone plans on earth. So when we travel, we never use our data. We always just use Wi-Fi because
Sure.
Mark, if you can believe this, when I tell you this, you're gonna be like, no way. Whenever I came down to visit you and do shows with you, up until the start of 2022, I paid $15 every day I was in the US to use my
Wow.
phone. And so Europe, I think it's $17. So I like that one day I was driving back to Florence, I put on my data because I'm like, I need to know where I'm going on the roads here because I didn't have a map.
right.
Yep.
And that's
Who
and my
uses
parents all
maps
have
anymore?
maps. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's true.
Well, Mark, I feel like we need to explain to him what a triptych is.
It's like Google Maps, but on paper. And it literally had the mile markers. So if you were driving from Atlanta to Miami, which, I used to do,
Yeah.
you get the triptych and well, Okahonka Service Plaza is at mile marker, 172, and we're currently at 209. And, hey, and it teaches you math. You have to learn to subtract in your head when you're 7, 8 years old, right?
So this is before MapQuest?
No, this is way before map.
Way before map.
Yes.
Okay,
But
okay.
you'd have to let AAA know, like, hey, I'm traveling from point A to point B, and they would put together your little physical map for you, and then you'd go pick it up. They were all custom.
I'm loving this. I've learned something. So what did that cost?
It was part of your AAA membership.
Right. If you were a AAA member, right.
Okay.
Yes. So
Wow.
it was, but it was
Cool.
like a spot, like the ones I remember were like
spiral
bound.
Yeah.
Like all right, we're on to the next piece of paper now. It was like a steno pad almost, if you know what a steno pad is. So,
Yeah.
and I just took a trip, this is probably 8 years ago, to Colorado, and maps were way gone by then. But your GPS does not work in the mountains of Colorado and inside of the natural parks. And so I literally drove back. I backtracked about 15 minutes and looked at the map and screenshotted all the next couple of maps because I knew I wouldn't have cell service in 10 more miles. So yes, that's the way it worked in the olden days. So times do change, and they change quickly. And so we need our vendor partners to think that way as well. We need our MSP partners to think nimble and to realize things have changed. Then I think the other thing is, from a sales perspective, is when we're, as vendors, we're being nimble and MSPs were being nimble, recognize that your clients and your prospects might still be digging in their heels a little bit. They're probably not using triptychs. They probably are using their GPS, but they're not necessarily using AI. They're not necessarily aware of the changes in compliance and security because they're stuck 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, the world is moving so quickly that a lot of the end users are not necessarily keeping up with those changes, which spells opportunity again for MSPs. So I love it.
For sure. Well, I know I had one of so I lost my job just at the start of COVID. And of course they said, oh, Miles, you know, you're a big part of this business. We'll have you back soon. And there was about 30 sales staff all over the world. And within 2 weeks, maybe I had the foresight and I'm like, this isn't going to come back. And I got a job with my buddy who had tried to hire me before, but I'm like, you know what? I know what you pay. You can't afford me, blah, blah, blah. And so he got to afford me because the government in Canada paid if you hired someone during COVID. So they paid like a quite nice salary. And so I went over to his company. I worked for 6 months and there was nothing going on during COVID. And he reached out to me this week and he's like, hey, I watch your videos on LinkedIn. I need to do something with cybersecurity. I'm like, yeah, you do. So it was actually pretty neat. So I sat on a call this week. I've never done this before. I hooked him up with an MSP that I know and really respect. And I'm like, and I said to the MSP, I'm like, can I sit on your call? And he's like, sure, for sure, Miles. And so I sat in as like, I watched this guy that I know in the MSP world pitch my old boss, and it was great. And it was so interesting to see how it worked. And like, I was like, I should have done this way before, but when would they ever allow me to just like sit in on a call?
Right.
But it was neat. It was cool.
That's cool. Yeah. A lot of times when my clients ask me, like, I don't know how to have these conversations. I don't know how to bring this up. I'm like, just pretend like you're at dinner, like you're just dinner, whether that's, drinks or beer or soda or watching the game, like you're just in a personal, relatively casual setting, especially if it's a client. Hopefully, your clients pretty well and you've got some rapport. Like, how would you bring it up to them? Hey, have you heard about the latest ransomware thing? Or, hey, there's this compliance bill before Congress. Or, hey, did you hear our government is voting on whatever? Like, just have a conversation. And that's so important. So I love that you kind of got that, you got to grease the wheels a little bit for this MSP by having a conversation and by them watching your videos. So
of course. And I said, like I said, the travel industry is kind of a dinosaur in a way. Like, it's completely, everything is going more digital, less and less talking to humans and more talking to bots, or they outsource to the Philippines or India with like all of their tech team and all of their personalized team. And, I think for him, he was losing business to competitors, my friend who worked in the travel industry, because they haven't evolved enough. So, like a company would say to him, well, if we use you, what do you have for compliance? What do you have for cybersecurity? What do you have for, phishing attacks? And he would just be like, oh, well, we use third parties that protect you. And people weren't liking that. And I know that if he gets on board with this MSP, he'll be able to say, I have this, 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 and this. And that's why you want to go with us, because you know what? You're going to talk to Marv at, Marv's Travel, and he's going to say, well, we allow someone else to look after that. And I thought of like the opportunity there. I'm like, it's good marketing.
It is. And from a sales perspective, anytime you're buying because of the outside pressure, that's a great place. So there's outside pressure on the travel agent because they have people asking, what are you using for this? That's a great position for the MSP to be in, because now it's not just me telling you or the government telling you, like this is your clients, your revenue telling you need to have this in place or I'm not going to use you again. So I love that. Yeah. Very cool. What else are you seeing, like from a compliance standpoint? Because I'm seeing all kinds of buzzwords and webinars and playbooks and things like that. But what are you hearing from the field, from the trenches?
Wow. It's not brand new, but it's still pretty new and top of mind. Is I was talking to actually one of our MSP customers a day or two ago. And, he said, he was talking about the new FTC safeguards rule, right? And he said, yeah, so they're treating my automotive customers as if they're banks or financial institutions. And, that's for MSPs who are in that market, using tools like Compliance Manager or however you help them deliver it. But, making sure that, their FTC safeguards compliant is a big deal, because that's now a requirement by the FTC. CMMC also still growing very fast. A lot of our customers are doing that. There are some groups that are learning and going this journey together, which is kind of cool. Compliance as a whole is just a very hot topic, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about, cybersecurity assurance or, compliance itself.
Love it.
And I would say like a lot of these things, I mean, being in the industry for the last 3 or 4 years, I did not know a lot about compliance, and hearing that, like, you said it was the automobile industry has certain compliance they have to follow now. Is that right, Mark?
Well, because they do financing, right? And so
course.
at a certain level, that makes them liable to Federal Trade Commission rules and regulations. And they're, really focusing on that in that particular industry. So it's not just automotive, but that's a big area.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say, it used to be law and financing, but now like pretty much any industry, if they don't have some regulatory system in place, they're probably going to have something in the next couple of years. So it's a great conversation starter as well, which, I mean, like the travel industry, there was never a rule you had to be able to protect someone's data. And now you have to. And that's only come up since COVID.
Right.
Like, 3 years ago, that wasn't a thing. And now it's a thing. Or
Yes.
now people are starting to ask.
And it's not just, regulations. There's a lot of times in contracts, an MSP's customer may have signed a contract with somebody that says, somewhere in some clause that they're going to maintain some level of security for the data. And they've got, in the event of some sort of breach or other audit, they need to prove that they're doing it. And so, you can't just lie to comply either. You've got to have the evidence of artifacts to show that you really were in compliance with that. Cyber liability insurance, right? It used to be easy to get. It's harder to get now.
Yes.
But it's even harder to get paid because, they were having to pay out a lot and they're tightening up. And if you can't prove that, the things that you asserted to in the application, I do regular vulnerability scanning, or, I do this or that to protect this data. If you can't prove that you were doing it, they may be able to pay a lot less or not pay at all, if you need to have that insurance.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're hearing of claim denial, like complete denials because, the companies guessed or lied on their applications. So yeah,
they're just not doing what they're saying they're doing. Like, if you say you're doing cybersecurity awareness training and you're doing it 10 times a year, the insurance company, the first thing they're going to say is, show me proof that you've trained your team on cybersecurity awareness training 10 times this past year. And if you've done 9, once again, like Mark said, they can say, great, well, we're not going to, you prove that you're lying to us. What else are you lying about?
Yes. Yes.
And back to integrations, right? So Bullfish ID, great training, right? From say a product, has some direct integration into Compliance Manager to, document that as part of your compliance if you need to. So, again, that's back to, another integration that's available. It makes it so easy to do.
Love it. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So what's next? Mark, are you going to any events? Are you going to trade shows? Miles, what about you?
Mark, are you going to Jennifer's event in Florida in June?
Yes.
I'm off the road, but where I live in Northeast Florida, it's not so far. So if I have to, Jennifer, I'll just take a day off and just drive down for the day. I'll get there on my own dime somehow if I have.
There you go. I'll get you a ticket. If Kaseya won't get it for you, I got you covered. All right. So listen, I'm going to take that opportunity. If you are watching this and you don't have your ticket yet, go to mspsalesrevolution.com/ultimate and get your event ticket to the Ultimate IT Growth Conference. It is in Orlando, June 13 and 14. And this lineup is fantastic. We've got, I've got 6 different sessions: sales, marketing, chat GPT, really, really cool stuff. Ian Richardson is coming in to talk about vision, mission, value, but beyond just like that important topic, it's really how those things should be communicated to your team so that we reduce the tap on the shoulder and the can I run something past you. And so it's taking it beyond just that surface, what is vision, mission, values, and more. Once you've communicated it to your team, how does it free up the executive's time, which is a different level, it's a different layer than what I've dug into before. So I'm excited about that. We've got in one of my sales mentors, John Hill. He is talking about how walking into a sales call and being super smart technically, which is almost everybody in the room, can be a detriment. It can actually hurt that the rapport, because you know so much and your prospect knows so little, and you may break that rapport. So I'm excited about that session. I mean, we've got so much good stuff. So yeah, it's going to be great. So get your tickets, mspsalesrevolution.com/ultimate. Kaseya will be there. Blockworks will be there again. Solutions Granted will be there. So lots of great security people in the space, and a room full of MSPs that are all looking to grow their business and looking for that next edge.
Yeah, it was a great conference last June. And I know one or two of long-term clients of ours, even before with Kaseya, easy for me to say. Jeff, I won't name his last name. Yeah, he thought the conference was terrific. I forget who the other one was, but yeah, I thought the content was great. They did too. So, you know, if you're, I would say get there, definitely.
I appreciate it. Jeff has a very high standard. He and I talked at the end of the event. He comes to MSP events and IT conferences, notebook in hand, and he usually has a lunch appointment scheduled for that same day, because he figures the content will be absolute garbage and he'll be gone by noon. And he said this is the first conference where he actually took pages and pages and pages of notes and stayed for both full days of the event. So high standards, and we rose to the occasion, and this year is going to be even better. So yeah, Jeff is good people. I talk to Jeff almost every week, so I love it. All right, what's coming up next for Kaseya? Anything you've got coming down the pike? I know you've got the IT Complete. Is that what IT Complete Local? Is that what it's called? That's in DC in a couple of weeks, and then you've got another one on the East Coast in June. You're doing I think you're doing a couple a week. So yeah, you're all over the place.
80 shows, I believe. I know the other people might say, Miles, we've told you the number. It was 80 or 82, but we have our locals. And why the locals are great. If you can't make it out to Vegas and see Mark and I, you know, there's a show that's probably close to you, and that's, you know, in North America, in Europe, in Australia. I know, you know, with the IT locals, I know we have the towns listed, and I know we've got Chicago, we've got DC, we've got Austin, we've got Houston. And then if you're in Europe, it just said Belgium. And I'm like, come on, what town is it in Belgium? Belgium's so big. You know, I know in Australia, we had one this week in Perth, which is Western Australia. I believe we had one in Brisbane last week. So there's probably an event close by, and they're just a little taste of what's going on with us. We have great speakers. And what's so nice is the C-suite comes out. So you actually get an audience, and you get to meet some of the C-suite in a smaller, more intimate audience, you know, anywhere from 50 to 150 people. And I know we have some Top Golf events coming up too, which is really neat. They just did the big stadium that was used during the Super Bowl in Scottsdale. I can't remember the name of the stadium, but that's where the Super Bowl was just held. And then there's one, this is probably the neatest one, which Mark's going to be like, oh, I'm coming up for that. We're renting out whatever it's called at Wrigley Field. That it's called like the Wrigley box or something at Wrigley Field. So you can go to Chicago.
Is it Chicago? Okay, got it.
And you know, the most famous baseball stadium in the world outside, that's not in Boston, I guess. And it's called the Wrigley Stand or something like that. And it just sounds so neat. So they're really making a big effort to do something out of the box, do something different. And it's not just showing up at a venue and going, here's some food and here's some drink. So they're neat and new and innovative ways to get out to the MSP community. And the speakers are great.
Love it.
And you're speaking at one. You're going to one.
Yes, I'm actually going to two, but I can't even think about the second one because it's after my event. But I am May 30th, I believe, is the one that I'm going to in DC. It's the Top Golf. I mean, total home court advantage. It's a 30-minute drive from my house. So I'll be there for the full event. I've got a short speaking spot. Kaseya was super gracious, bought copies of my book for everyone. So I'll be signing books that night and then sleep in my own bed. Like, it's the best trade show ever. And it's not really a trade show.
Sure.
It's an event. Get in the room, get your questions answered. Like you said, shake hands with the Kaseya C-suite and your colleagues, and get some great sales advice and marketing advice and ops info, and learn about the latest, greatest things happening with all the various Kaseya tools. So, man, you guys are great. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. This is a lot of
Absolutely.
fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us on board. It's been
Appreciate it,
fun.
Jim.
Yes, and it's been almost an hour already. So time flies. Have an amazing rest of your day. Have a great weekend also.
Great
Thanks,
stuff.
you too.
Take care.
Thanks again.
Goodbye.
Bye.